Alex Pereira versus Ciryl Gane will not be close. And I know what you guys are thinking. Travis, when was Alex Pereira versus Ciryl Gane announced? Did I just miss this over the holiday break with my family? And let me explain all of that to you in this video, as well as a breakdown for each fighter and how they match up against each other. And then at the end of the video, we'll have a prediction for who I think will win that fight. So make sure you stay to the end to get the prediction. And if you guys want to give me a little holiday gift, you could go down and hit that subscribe button right now, because next year when we're a big MMA channel, you could look back and be a day one community member. But with that being out of the way, let's get right into this video, and we'll start off with the fight news or rumors of how this fight is coming about. So if you guys remember, Tom Aspinall vs. Ciryl Gane 1 took place at UFC 321 for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the UFC. And this was after a long break, as Tom Aspinall as the champion with no other fight, because Jon Jones was the other heavyweight champion. We all know that saga. He was waiting to fight Alex Pereira. That fight never ended up coming about, so he ended up retiring from UFC, and Tom Aspinall became the undisputed heavyweight champion upon that retirement. And we finally got Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane at UFC 321, and we only got to see about 4.5 minutes of this very hyped up fight, as Ciryl Gane just double eye poked Tom Aspinall, and he had to end the fight due to a medical injury. This was ruled a no contest. This fight was not completed, and we've been waiting, hearing about Tom Aspinall's recovery process, how it's going, and he seemingly notified to us under a comment on an Instagram post that he will be needing surgery on his eye, and that's why he cannot fight Ciryl Gane right now, when Ciryl Gane said he was ready to fight and he didn't know where Tom was. So now we start piecing these pieces together, because all along Alex Pereira, since beating Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 320, and even before that, he said that in 2026 he will be fighting in the heavyweight division of the UFC. He said this multiple times, and his story has never changed. The only thing that has changed, originally he did want the Jon Jones fight, and they wanted to fight each other at the White House. However, Dana White has been against this the whole time, and finally, as of last week, it seems as if Alex Pereira has come to that realization, as he put out to the media that the White House fight is no longer happening between him and Jon Jones. So there we can safely assume that Jon Jones is not returning to the UFC. But Alex Pereira still said that his next fight will be at heavyweight. So given what we know about that and what we know about Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane, we can deduce that Alex Pereira versus Ciryl Gane is likely to happen. This is news I'm bringing you guys that is likely to happen in the UFC, because Tom Aspinall getting surgery means he will not be fighting until the later part of 2026 most likely. And we know that Ciryl Gane, after having a good first round performance against Tom Aspinall for the championship, isn't going to take another fight that's not for a championship. And we know Pereira, being a 2-division champion of the UFC, 3-time champion, huge global superstar, and he's aging. This guy's going to be 39 this year. We know that his next fight at heavyweight will be for a championship. He won't move up and fight a contender. He's already done that at light heavyweight, proved he's a 2-division champ. So going into heavyweight, he will be fighting for a championship. So there it is. It works. But Travis, how does it work? None of those guys are champion. Tom Aspinall is the champion. How are we going to get Alex Pereira versus Ciryl Gane? Well, let me tell you, it's this great thing called an interim belt. We see the same exact thing happening at lightweight right now under different circumstances. As we've covered in previous videos, Ilia Topuria is stepping away from the UFC for the time being to deal with his family and legal matters, while Tom Aspinall is stepping away to deal with these injury matters. So for the meantime, we're going to have an interim belt of Ciryl Gane versus Alex Pereira, and you better believe this is coming. So in this video, we're going to break down and give that prediction. We already talked about the other interim fight, which is Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. So if you want to watch that video, you could go check that one out after this one. But let's get right into this breakdown. So let's look at Ciryl Gane's side of the equation first. Ciryl Gane has the advantage in that he is already the heavyweight in this matchup. He's been at heavyweight for years right now, so his body and frame is very used to this weight class. Now, a few years ago, Ciryl Gane lost to Jon Jones in the first round when he was fighting for the undisputed belt, and a lot of fans, not myself included, but a lot of fans were writing him off. I more or less saw it as, hey, you're fighting Jon Jones, one of the biggest UFC superstars of all time. It's his return fight when he hasn't been fighting in 3 years on his home ground in the USA, in Madison Square Garden of New York City, one of the best sports arenas in the world. All the fans are booing you. All the fans are cheering him. Big spectacle of Jon Jones coming back, and he's a well-rounded fighter. He's considered the GOAT of MMA, and you lose to that guy. I don't really blame you for that. That's a really tough ask. That's a huge spotlight against a great fighter, and you lost. It is what it is. I didn't write him off for that one. I think that's a fair loss. I think every other fighter in the heavyweight division at that time would have lost as well. And since then, he's been getting some wins. You know, he beat Alexander Volkov, and a lot of people say this was a robbery, myself included. I do think that was a robbery. I think Volkov should have won. However, Ciryl Gane got the nod, and he did win. It was a close fight. And since then, UFC 321 happened. He was fighting Tom Aspinall, who was the huge favorite. And through 4.5 minutes of this first round, which is unfortunately all we got to see, we did see Ciryl Gane was getting the upper hand. Albeit, it wasn't dominated. It wasn't this one-sided thing like some of Twitter would have you believe. However, Ciryl Gane, if it was going to go to a scorecard for that round, he would have won 10-9 over Aspinall, in my opinion. And that is saying a lot because everyone was saying Aspinall was going to beat Jones, and Ciryl Gane was a big underdog to Aspinall. So if Ciryl Gane could come out and look like the better fighter through one round against Tom Aspinall, maybe he's a lot better than you guys were all saying he was after the Jon Jones loss. And again, his advantage is here. He is used to heavyweight. Alex Pereira, we'll talk about this later, but he started at middleweight at 185 and is now coming all the way up to 265 heavyweight. That's an 80-pound jump in weight classes, which is unheard of in MMA, basically. Meanwhile, Ciryl Gane has been fighting at heavyweight his whole career, and he is used to it. And he's a great kickboxer. He's slick on the feet, very fast. Honestly, the best footwork I've seen out of a heavyweight in quite a long time, potentially ever. So those are my biggest advantages I have going for Ciryl Gane. Being used to that weight class is going to be a big one. But now looking at Alex Pereira's side of things, I don't need to give him some big introduction. You know who he is. 2-division champ of the UFC, middleweight and light heavyweight, and he's a 3-time champion when he knocked out Magomed Ankalaev in about a minute and 20 seconds at UFC 320. And now he is moving up to heavyweight. You better believe this is happening after all he's done for the UFC and how big of a star he is. And moving to heavyweight, his biggest disadvantage is that is a 265 weight-pound limit when his body is used to fighting at 185. That is not something where you're just, oh, Ilia Topuria moving up from 145 to 155. This is moving up to from 185 to 265. These are guys that are going to be way bigger than guys you've ever fought. You started off fighting guys like Sean Strickland, and now you're going to be fighting guys like Tom Aspinall and Ciryl Gane. I mean, these guys are like twice the body mass of Sean Strickland. These guys are huge. However, Alex Pereira has some distinct advantages here that are really important that I want to get into. The first being, I know I just said Ciryl Gane's a great kickboxer, and he is. Alex Pereira is the better kickboxer. He's a world champion kickboxer before he came to the UFC. You guys all know this. And not only does he have a kickboxing advantage, but he has a power advantage. Ciryl Gane, he is a great striker, but he's never been known to be a one-shot KO type of guy who could just knock your lights out. He has impressive quick striking, big bag, a lot of different moves he could throw, but he's not a one-shot knockout type of guy like Alex Pereira is. So if there's going to be a knockout in this fight, it is heavily likely that it is going to be Alex Pereira knocking the lights out of Ciryl Gane. Going into my next point, I think Alex Pereira has all the momentum in the world coming into this fight. He has had a quick UFC career, although it's been many years at this point. It's been quicker than most, and his rise to the top has been quicker than anybody we've ever seen. He has all the momentum. 2-division champ. Just beat his biggest challenge yet in Magomed Ankalaev in shockingly amazing fashion just a few months ago. He has all that momentum. Meanwhile, Ciryl Gane's career, we have embarrassing loss to Jon Jones. We have a robbery win over Volkov. You got a lot of hate from that win. You were getting a lot of hate throughout the Jon Jones press. And you got a lot of hate after eye-poking Tom Aspinall. Everybody hates you. This fight, decent chance. I'd say, basically, as long as the fight is not in France, the fan base is going to be wildly behind Alex Pereira, and even if it's in France, it might be shockingly close with who the fans are cheering for. I know Ciryl Gane's a native, but Alex Pereira is one of the biggest stars we've ever seen in MMA, and I reckon he's the biggest star we've seen since Conor McGregor. And we've seen Ciryl Gane shrink in these big moments before. I mean, we saw it with Ciryl Gane versus Jon Jones, and are we going to see the same thing with Ciryl Gane versus Alex Pereira? Can Ciryl Gane handle these big moments now? This will be a bigger moment than the Tom Aspinall fight. Alex Pereira is a massive superstar, and he will be going for UFC history, trying to become a 3-division champion in the UFC. Can Ciryl Gane handle that pressure, or will he crumble like we have seen him do before? Now, as promised, the final segment of this video is my prediction for who I think wins this fight and how I see it going. My prediction is that Alex Pereira will knock out Ciryl Gane in this fight. I get a lot of hate on my other videos, like Alex Pereira versus Jon Jones or Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, for thinking that the guy will beat Alex Pereira. I mean, Assuming Magomed was going to win was not a crazy claim like some people think it is. Magomed was a favorite going into that fight. And Jon Jones is considered by most people the GOAT of MMA, super well-rounded and possesses a threat that will put Pereira out, I think, in the grappling. However, someone like Ciryl Gane versus Alex Pereira, I think it's completely different. I don't think there's any fighter in the UFC roster right now that can beat Alex Pereira in a striking match. And we know that Ciryl Gane does not wrestle. He does not grapple. And that's what you need to beat Alex Pereira at the heavyweight division. I think that Pereira versus Tom Aspinall is a really tricky matchup because Aspinall can wrestle, and that will be an opponent way bigger than anyone Alex Pereira has ever faced. So the question there is, can Pereira deal with a guy that big trying to wrestle and grapple him? But when you're fighting Ciryl Gane, you know it's just going to be a striking fight. And I don't think Alex Pereira right now loses to anybody in the UFC in just a striking fight. And I do think that Alex Pereira eventually catches Ciryl Gane's chin and puts him out cold in this fight. And I think either way this fight goes is a win-win scenario for the fans and for Tom Aspinall. Because Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane 2 was already very hyped with how the first fight went and all the hype that's been building since with their bad blood. But if Ciryl Gane were to beat Alex Pereira, that adds even more hype to Ciryl Gane, and people are going to be claiming that Ciryl Gane will beat Tom Aspinall if he could already beat a top 10 UFC fighter like Alex Pereira. And on the other hand, if Alex Pereira comes up and gets a great win over a former heavyweight champion in Ciryl Gane, people are going to be calling him a top 5 UFC fighter of all time, triple champ of the UFC, going for his third undisputed belt, and that fight versus Tom Aspinall will be the fight of the year in 2026 if it comes to fruition. That fight will be so hyped up. However, that is just my opinion. I do think Pereira has the tools to get it done, and this is the matchup to get it done because Ciryl Gane will not grapple with him. It will be striking, and Pereira is just too good right now. But that is my prediction. Let me know what you guys think down below. My last point, Pereira walks around at 230, walks around at 240, so I think his body will be used to it. He doesn't have to cut weight, so his chin should be great, so I think he does get the win. But let me know what you guys think. Who would win in this fight, Ciryl Gane or Alex Pereira, if it does go down next year? And with that being said, thank you for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit that new hype button down below near the comment section. That helps this video out a ton. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next upload. Deuces.